Welcome to Lesson 3 of the Communication Proficiency course. In Lesson 2, we looked at narrative intelligence and how to cultivate it. We considered the role that storytelling plays in effective leadership communication. In Lesson 3, we will be advancing further in this study to know how to develop what is called the leadership message. In this lesson, our reflection is taken from the book of Esther chapter 5 and verse 8. Esther chapter 5 verse 8, and I'll be reading from the New International Version 2011. It reads, and I quote, "If the king regards me with favor, and if it pleases the king to grant my petition and fulfill my request, let the king and Haman come tomorrow to the banquet I will prepare for them. Then I will answer the king's question." Not having a message is a major reason why leaders do not connect with their followers. When the purpose of a leader's message is vague, they lose the attention of the people they are trying to lead. This shortcoming or deficiency is common in the public sector, the corporate world, and even among non-profit organizations. Leaders cannot afford to be unclear about the message they are trying to communicate. Paraphrasing the words of Baldoni, leaders are as good as their message. In the very words of the legendary motivational speaker Zig Ziglar, he said, and I quote, "You are your message. The most influential person who will talk to you all day is you. So you be careful of what you say to you." What profound words. One of the purposes of leadership communication is for leaders to build trust with their followers. Trust is essential to a leader's credibility. For leaders to establish credibility, they need to develop trust or earn the trust rather of the people who follow them. Credibility is a leader's currency. With it, they are solvent. Without it, they are bankrupt. Cousins and Bosnia 2017. Leaders establish credibility in many ways, but let me just quickly mention 3 important ways that leaders can establish credibility. Number 1, leaders establish credibility by never over-promising. In other words, they promise what they know they can deliver on, because people are going to take them at their word. 2, they refuse to yield to the temptation of hiding bad news. That means they are transparent. Transparency is an avenue for leaders to establish credibility. And thirdly, they have to be the man or woman of their words. Their word has to be their bond. People are marking the words that we say. Whatever we tell them, they are looking forward to it being implemented or executed. The message is the reason for speaking. And put it this way, if a leader does not have a message, that leader should not speak. The message is the reason for speaking. Leaders need to ensure they have a concrete message before they venture to speaking to their followers. One way to think about the message is, what is that 30-second takeaway thought you would want the people to remember? The message is not the content of the conversation. It is the reason for speaking. It is the heart of what the leader is trying to pass across. The most successful leader's message is one that can be summarized in just one sentence. Johnson and Hackman 2018. Now to how leaders create the leadership message. Leaders can create the leadership message by first asking themselves questions like, what do I want to say? What do I want the audience to remember? Or what do I want my followers or those that follow me to take home with them? These are pertinent questions that leaders have to ask before they speak to the people who follow them. Leaders could go ahead to consult a colleague and rehearse what they intend to pass across. I mean, after finding answers to the questions that were asked, knowing what you would like to say, consult with a colleague, rehearse what you intend to pass across, and then engage in dialogue to exchange ideas. Fine-tune those thoughts. Brainstorm with a team of people. Remember not to make the conversation complex. The main point is to arrive at a concrete message and not complex, as simple as possible. But the main point is to arrive at a concrete message. When the message is arrived at, content can be developed later. So it is important that before leaders begin to express themselves and their thoughts, they need to ask themselves the question, what is it that I would like the people to take home with? What do I really want to say? What is at the heart? How do I want to connect with the people who follow me? And brainstorm with colleagues, engage them in dialogue, exchange ideas, and then the main point, of course, is to arrive at a concrete message. Once the concrete message is arrived at, the content can be built around that concrete message. In this next session, we're going to consider set expectations that a leader's message must meet if it must achieve its intended purpose. In this section, we will consider 4 of them. They are known as the 4 I's, according to Baldoni 2003. The first I that a leader's message must seek to achieve is that a leader's message must inform people. Leader's message must inform people, or must inform the people that follow them. Must inform them what the issues are and what they need to do about it. Leaders owe the people they lead an explanation. Whether the news is good or bad, they owe the people an explanation, not only when it is good. Even when it is bad, leaders owe the people they lead an explanation. Even when there's no news, leaders need to be seen and heard constantly. So one of the cogent responsibility of the leaders is always out there providing constant, consistent information. So the leader's message must inform. That is the first I. Leadership is about influence. So the leader's message must involve people. That's the second I. The leader's message must involve people. It must inspire followers to get involved. The leader's message must secure buy-in from its listeners. The message needs to engage followers in a way that it generates feedback in form of suggestions and clarifying questions. The message should be presented in such a way that indicates that followers have a stake in the conversation or the organization. So, the second I is that a leader's message must seek to get the people they lead involved, as leadership is all about influence. Just as a car needs the ignition on before it can move, so also do leaders need to know how to ignite their followers or turn on the ignition of their followers for them to move in the direction the leaders desire. It is important that leaders communicate in a way that literally provides the spark that influence followers to act. So the third I is that the leader's message must ignite their followers. The leader's message must ignite their followers. Leaders must, through their message, know how to turn on the ignition of the people who follow them so that they move in the desired direction of the organization. Leaders need to be able to ignite the imaginations of those who follow them to make things better for themselves and consequentially the organization. The fourth I, and definitely not the least I, is that the leader's message must invite people. Leaders need to communicate in a way that they're able to recruit others to take action and bring about change in the organization or the community. Such leaders talk or should talk about what the people can do by themselves and for themselves. Until leaders can effectively communicate to influence others to follow them, they are just babbling, or in the words of leadership expert John Maxwell, they are just going on a walk. To balance the perspective of leadership communication, it's important to note that leadership communication is not only a downward flow, that means from leaders to followers. Leaders need to also know how to communicate upwards to their own leaders, to their directors or advisory board, as the case may be. Regardless of whether communication is downwards or upwards, the core purpose is to instill trust and arrive at desired results. Communicating upwards requires tasks such as keeping everyone on the same page. So, the intention of communicating upwards is to ensure that the leader or the directors or the advisory board or even colleagues are kept on the same page. Secondly, communicating upwards requires tasks such as separating facts from sentiments. When presenting to those above the leader, it's important that sentiments are extracted from the facts. Again, also, it's important to know when to negotiate. You know, it also involves some negotiation tactics. And then also it involves being sensitive to signs. You know, that implies that the leader needs to know how to intuitively pick signals and be sensitive to signs as they present upwards or communicate upwards. Before we summarize this lesson, let's go back to the reflection we read at the beginning, and that was taken from Esther chapter 5, verse 8, the New International Version 2011. Esther chapter 5, verse 8. It reads, and I quote, "If the king regards me with favor, and if it pleases the king to grant my petition and fulfill my request, let the king and Haman come tomorrow to the banquet I will prepare for them. Then I will answer the king's question." In developing a concrete leadership message, leaders need to think through, consult widely, and brainstorm intensely. Queen Esther ensured that the message she had for the king was well thought out so that she could articulate it clearly. This informed why she was not in a hurry to deliver it. Delaying the message till the appropriate time lends effectiveness to it. And since she knew she was communicating higher, as we learned earlier in this lesson, she knew it was important to be sensitive to know the right moment to present the message. To conclude this lesson, it's important to remind ourselves that before a leader creates a message or creates the leadership message, it's important that they ask themselves pertinent questions. Leaders need to be able to ask themselves pertinent questions. Questions like, why am I speaking? How can I establish my credibility? What do I want people to remember? How can I sum my message in less than 30 seconds? How will the audience respond to my message? How can I tune my message to gain clarity? If I make a mistake, what steps should I take to restore my credibility? Now, having answers to this question will help the leader formulate the message, the leadership message, and gain the required credibility. Now, this is the end of lesson 3, and hope to have you in the last lesson, lesson 4, later. Thank you.